Well, thanks for joining. And Renee, I believe I hope we're recording this one. You know what? I think they record all the spaces, whether you say you want to record them or not, and then you can access them in the Twitter archive. It's weird.
Interesting. I was unaware
Hmm.
of that. But
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
again, like I said, this is the first Twitter Space thing I've ever done, so I don't know what I'm doing at all.
Just need to talk about the stuff that you know about, and I will guide you through it. And other people can jump in, like Sketchlight can jump into the conversation, and it's not an interview. It's more of a bunch of people sitting around the table in the lunchroom in high school talking about
Oh
stuff.
man, I hope not, because the stuff we talked around the lunchroom, those are in the days of like rotten.com. It was not good.
Rotten.com and bum fights and all
Oh
that
man, it was
stuff when all that
so
was.
bad. It was so bad. This, ugh. Why
Yeah.
were we a thing back then? That was terrible.
I know. It's a mess. It's a mess. But hey, now everything's perfect, right? So it's all
I mean, we're not doing that anymore, so there's got to be some win.
yeah, yeah. Well, Renee, I wanna introduce you since we're recording this. I want to introduce you to folks that are in the room and that are listening to this in the future. You are one of my. I was thinking about this. You are one of my youngest, oldest friends.
Which is that has many layers and meanings. I'm gonna
Exactly.
take that as a compliment, I think.
It depends on your state of mind when you hear the statement,
Yeah.
right?
For now, I'm gonna take it as a compliment. I'm in a mood.
Well, you know me, so you know it's a compliment,
Yeah,
right?
fair. True, true, true.
Yeah.
That is a long
Yeah,
time.
and you are, I mean, for the folks that don't know, I mean, they can head over to your website. It's Renee Robyn Photography or Renee Robyn Photo. I
No,
forget
just
which one.
ReneeRobyn.com. The Renee Robyn
Oh,
photography got stolen by hackers, and I haven't been able to get it back. So it's just ReneeRobyn.com.
well, cool. Well, I would encourage folks to go check out your work over there, Renee Robyn Photographer or
Yeah.
ReneeRobyn.com, and you know, be intimidated by the quality of your
Nah.
photography and compositing work.
Nah. No need for intimidation.
No, it's great. And you and I, some of the conversations that we have offline, I think should be done in a format like this because we have, over the years, we've had some pretty interesting conversations either through text or voice about all kinds of stuff, usually science fiction and metaphysical type things. But
I suppose. I mean, maybe they're just more
yeah,
interesting because we know nobody's listening.
yeah, well, there's that too. Or maybe they are interesting. I don't know. But one of the conversations that we had, and I know there's a fair amount of shroud of secrecy over some of the projects that you're working on, but from a high level, I wanted to have you in this light hour to talk, a bit about where you think things might be going, especially from the perspective of a compositing artist,
Hmm.
right? And I think we had an initial touch base on this topic a couple of months ago, and this was around when Mark Zuckerberg had announced, the shift into Meta and how they were leaning into the VR world,
Yep.
and then of course all this NFT stuff is going on and the crash and so there's all kinds of things happening, and Apple's, rumored AR glasses that they're coming out with,
Oh
and
man, AR
there's all
glasses would
kinds
be
of
sweet.
right, yeah, there's all kinds of movement that's happening. So if you fast forward 5 years from now, you probably won't recognize the era that we're sitting in right now. I'm curious as an artist, someone who's, progressive and on the bleeding edge with your work, both in terms of the skill set and the content of your work, where do you see this stuff going? I mean, and I'll put a finer point on it. When you look at when we talk about VR, and the things where VR might be going or AR, I think we as a group tend to look at it from our little echo chamber.
Hmm.
And if you go outside of our echo chamber, like my neighbor, for example, is a dentist. He's not going to know anything about what we're talking about. How long until my neighbor can enjoy some stuff that's happening in this VR AR world?
I mean, probably not your neighbor, but his kids for sure, or
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
kids. Um, I mean, like AR is already here. It's just kind of clunky, right? I mean, I've been working on an AR project for the last 6 years, and we had planned on launching it in another four once AR had more time to mature. And sometimes that's just not how it goes. So we're trying to launch it a few years early, and as a result, a lot of the stuff that we really were hoping to be able to do, we can't right now. But I mean, like, AR is only sort of fringe right now, but I mean, if you're looking into like the gaming world and stuff like that, I mean, I think gaming will be the biggest switch for AR and how acceptable it is to the masses, because I mean, gaming is bigger, like League of Legends is bigger than the NBA.
Yeah, I know.
Like as soon as gaming really figures out how they want to use AR, I think that is when it'll really explode, because I mean, that's just going to be awesome. I mean, then it becomes like this really fun interactive thing that you get to play either with yourself or with your friends or whatever. Um, and I think that will be very, very interesting. And that'll have, I think, the
No, I
biggest
get.
impact more than anything.
Yeah, I'm curious, and I was talking to someone else about this earlier this week, and it was around the idea because we were thinking about going to Universal Studios, and I was thinking, like, we know the gaming world is bigger than Hollywood,
Hmm.
right? But I don't know by how many orders of magnitude, but I know it's larger in terms of capital or revenue generation,
Hmm.
and maybe even people, or maybe even fan adoration of the different games and all that, and stickiness. So in a lot of different metrics, it's more successful than Hollywood and the go sit in a seat, pay, go to a theater, consume, and leave,
Right.
right? When does the gaming or interactive world start getting the notoriety that the Hollywood or entertainment world gets? Or, like with theme parks and all these other things, is that going to happen? Does it need to happen? Or is it just an outdated
I mean,
modality?
I think that's a really, really good question. I mean, one of the games that's kind of doing that a little bit, but not a lot, is Halo, right? So, I mean, if you go into a lot of, the game, like, I don't know if you have them in the States, I'm sure you do, but we have these things up here in Canada called like the Rec Room. And it's basically like you pay, to go play a bunch of games that normally you'd be playing at home. And then, so there's like Mario Kart, but you get to actually sit in the car, and like, the motorbike racing and like all that crap. So like that hasn't changed at all. But I mean, like you can also go play a Halo game where you actually get to hold like these guns, and they have these like kind of this, impact reaction to them. And I mean, it's hard to get gamers outside of their house, first of all, because like
That's the key.
everything that you love is at home, right? So the only way that you can really get gamers like out, and this is, speaking from the experience of a gamer, is that like it has to either have a community draw, right? Or it has to offer something better than what you can get at home, which at home you can be in like your PJs and like comfy clothes, and like, your favorite food is there, your snacks are there, you got no traffic, you don't have to worry about catching a head cold from like a bunch of snotty other kids. So, I
Hmm.
mean, like, I think in order for that to really be broken, you have to be able to make a deal to gamers that's better than what they have at home. So like when you go out to like, movies and stuff like that, you're going to a theater, you're having an experience talked at you, right? So
Hmm.
you're being like yanked and dragged, whether you want to be or not, through this experience that, a director and a whole cast of people have made for you, and hopefully you enjoy it. But with games, like, yeah, there's the storyline and everything, but especially when you start getting into like the modding world, right? Where like you can get Skyrim and all these people, there's a whole community of people who are just like, hey, you can make all these customizable stuff that like, the original devs never made, and now we've made this, and like, hope you enjoy it, whether it's like free or whatever. I mean, it's hard to, when there's so much of that out there, it's, I think, difficult to beat that when, what we can do with games exists fully in your mind, and you can kind of, like, yeah, you have this world, do you want to play Ghost of Tsushima, or do you want to play Horizon Zero Dawn, or do you want to play Call of Duty, right? Like, so these worlds are like right there in your home.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like how do you pull people out of that, because you can't say like, oh, we're going to do Call of Duty but like paintball, like that's not a draw for a lot of people, right? They don't care.
Yeah, and I wonder, I think you hit on a really good point there, and that's I guess the personality. We're generalizing,
Mhm, of
right? The
course, yeah,
personality type.
hugely
Yeah,
generalizing.
Yeah, the personality type of the gamer, right? The stereotypical, Jolt Cola
Well, but
drinking
that's not really how
neckbeard,
it is
right?
anymore. That's not gaming anymore.
No, because I'm a gamer.
Yeah, that's not gaming at all. I mean, gaming now is, I mean, I think it's pretty evenly 50% women and men. So like the trope of like the fucking gross neck beard, that's so outdated. I mean, the average age of
Hmm.
gamers, I think now we're in their, and could be an outdated stat, but last I checked, I thought they were mid 30s to mid 40s is the average age of like console gamers. PC
Yeah.
gamers, I think, are much younger. But
So then that said, is the, all this talk about the metaverse is coming, and it's going to be Ready Player One, and we're going to be buying NFTs and hanging them on the wall in our virtual houses, and all this utopian vision of the virtual,
mhm,
right? Is it already here? Right? I mean, it sounds like if you look at the size of, I don't know, like World of Warcraft or Roblox
yeah,
or any of these giant sort of undercover to the mainstream world, these undercover communities that are just bigger than most real
yeah.
cities,
I mean, they're bigger than
right?
countries.
Yeah, yeah. So are we already there? I mean, are we already in the meta? And we just, it's like the Matrix. You don't see it because you don't want to see it,
I
or
mean, like that's actually a really, really good point that I hadn't really considered before. Is that yeah, the gaming world is very much so that meta. It just has a very different branding on it, right? Because yeah, you get to like buy these things, you get to like trick out your character, you get to like pay to play or just earn your way up, whatever. Um, that's like a really good point. So is it all that much of a stretch to be saying like, yeah, I'm going to buy this NFT and I'm going to hang it in my digital apartment that I access through VR? It's actually not that far of a stretch, but will anybody care? And that is like a more interesting question to me. It's not so much about like whether people care about the NFTs, but is the world that's being created, is it more interesting and is it better than the one that we're in now? Which is why World of Warcraft is so awesome because, you could be someone with mobility issues and, all of a sudden in this game you get to be like a warlording orc because you're awesome at it.
yeah.
So like, does Meta right now offer anything better than the real world other than like a replication of the same toxic crap that we're dealing with now? Not yet, but will they probably figure it out? Probably.
I don't know. I mean, I remember I don't even know if this show is still on the air, but you remember Catfish, the Catfish show?
No, I do not, actually.
So Catfish, I forget what network is on. But folks in the space, if you remember Catfish, you raise your hand, right? Catfish was this show where it focused on people that were catfishing other people. Like,
Oh,
I would pretend
was
like,
it like a what are those things called? Reality TV show? Oh,
yeah, well, it
okay.
was kind of no, it wasn't a reality TV show where they had cameras following people around. It was more of a programmatic kind of documentary, episodic documentary where they would follow, they'd take one case where this person was in love with this person that's, they're on the East Coast and that person's on the
Okay,
West
yeah.
Coast,
I
and
think I've
the
heard about it.
person's yeah, they built this whole profile about who they are, but for some reason, over 5 years, they've never been able to do a successful video call or meet in person or
Yeah.
something, but they're still in deep love.
Hmm.
And I was looking at that and I'm thinking, like, virtual reality is closer than that, right? I mean, why, if you can fall in love with someone through text messaging
Hmm.
and voice phone
Yeah.
calls, why can't, I mean, the whole build your ideal self as an avatar and go interact with this person for hours and hours of, in a day, isn't that real?
Yeah, I mean,
I
like,
don't know.
I mean, we are like a herd species. We really crave human connection. And if you're getting that human connection from, user 543 I love cats dot ca something something, like, I mean, if
Yeah,
that's a real connection to you, then that's a real connection to you. And then, whether it is or is not. And that's where it
yeah,
gets complicated. But I mean, at the same time, like you can, for example, like I hate going back to it, but Call of Duty is a great place to just like, meet people online where you're playing with them and it's like, oh yeah, this person's super fun to play with and like really good on my team and like good attitude, whatever. And you can play with this person online for years and never actually meet them. and you still have a
Yeah.
relationship with that person, even if it is just like superficially like trying to take out teenagers in a
Practice
virtual
your
world, in a
sniping.
virtual world, right? You know, or
Yeah,
trying to not
yeah.
get taken out by teenagers, which is a more likely thing because I get absolutely nuked by them.
Well, you know what? I mean, on that, I mean, it's like non sequitur, but on that. And by the way, folks that are in this space, feel free to jump in, and this is an open dialogue. So if you want to chat, just raise your hand. I'll bring you on stage. But I was watching this documentary. It was talking about, I forget what the name of the case was, but it was talking about these two Call of Duty, specifically Call of Duty players that got mad at each other, and it was all about the how one of them swatted the other one, where they send the cops to the house,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, and then it ended in a shooting and somebody
Right,
died,
I
and so
remember
it was
that.
all about
Yeah.
that. But the thing in my head, because I'm always thinking about this virtual stuff, the thing in my head was, this all happened virtually,
Hmm.
right? Who cares if what the dispute was over, or if it happened on Call of Duty, or they were playing Monopoly online.
Yeah.
It happened remotely, whereas in days gone by, that kind of stuff was impossible because there was this physical in-person interaction. Even when I was growing up, it was okay, meet me on the playground, we'll settle this, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and now we don't have that anymore.
Right. Well,
So
because
that's the
it changed, I mean, living in a virtual world changed the conversation where it always used to be might was right? Where you were just like, hey, I'm more
hmm
physically capable than you, therefore I can kick your ass. And like that is not the world we live in anymore. And for some people, that is a very empowering experience. I mean, one of the biggest things that I love about the idea of these virtual spaces are for people who have ALS, for example, right? Where their bodies aren't working anymore and they can't go anywhere, they can't do anything. Like I'm really excited about these virtual spaces and these virtual worlds that they will be able to go places. Where right
Yeah,
now they're physically completely limited. Like will these spaces be abused? Naturally, because people are people and we're just kind of we're really awesome, but also kind of monsters at the same time.
yeah,
But for
yeah,
like some really vulnerable people around the world, like this could change everything for them, and I think it did. I mean, I have friends who have been diagnosed with certain things and their lives slowly shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And the one place that they can go is they can go online where they can have real friendships and real interactions and also like participate in raids. And it all
yeah.
happens in a virtual space. So, you know, these like meta things, whatever they are, and all the different versions of them that are going to come out over time, I think is going to be like an anti. It'll do two things. It'll isolate some people, but it'll also give community to a lot of others.
Yeah, it's almost like, life as you know it, if you get struck by a disability or some other
Hmm.
something that changes your reality, right? That doesn't necessarily in this near future, that doesn't necessarily mean that your life is over. You're going to be sitting in front of the TV, for waiting, watching the clock. You basically you could be shifting into another modality of being,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Especially, yeah.
I mean, I have a
hmm
lot of hope for that. I mean, I watched my grandfather have a stroke, massive stroke, and his physical world stopped, but his mind didn't, right? I mean, the last thing that he ever wrote me was this really long, beautiful email. And at this point, we thought he was non communicative. We didn't realize that his mind was totally fine. We had no clue until he sent that email. And it must have taken him 3 hours to write just these few paragraphs. And, that is like a very, very small case of a virtual world, helping someone communicate in a way that they can't anymore physically, right? I mean, just like having this little keyboard and him just like finger typing very, 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 very slowly, and it was like the last thing that he'd ever sent.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we realized that he's still in there. Everything about him, his mind, his everything, it was in perfect university level English because he was a professor, and like. All of a sudden realize like, oh God, he's still there. Like, we need to take him to movies. We need to get him drunk on scotch. We need to like, because like, but when that ability to communicate with the outside world is taken from you, you lose so much. And these virtual spaces and hopefully like the technology, I mean, there's so much, I mean, even going into like, these brain implants and stuff like that can happen for people. I mean, we can give worlds where people have lost worlds.
Yeah. It's like there was a Black Mirror episode like that. Yeah. Are you familiar with Black
I'm
Mirror? Have you
familiar.
ever
I could
seen
never
that?
watch it though because I mean I live my world digitally like that, and I was like, nope, I'm not spending my downtime watching all the things that I can't stand about it.
Like that's reality
Yeah,
TV. I don't want
nope,
to.
hard pass.
But there was one, it's an anthology, right? So one of the movies or the series or segments was about, I think it was Black Mirror, it may have been another one like it, but it was about this couple, and one of the couples, it was kind of a mixture of this whole catfishing thing, but with someone that was bedridden and unable to communicate,
Hmm.
but they fell in love in the virtual world. And they even start the story in the virtual world where they're hanging out and joking around, and they're in love. And
Hmm.
I think it was two women, right? And then you, over the course of the hour, you find out that one of them is actually bedridden and can only interact in the virtual world, and is torn, but about telling the other person that they don't have a viable regular body,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll have to find that and send it to you. It was really, really interesting. And those kind of things open up. I mean, we're talking about all this kind of big social stuff, but then, there's also the artistic side of
Hmm.
this, right? And like we were talking about, is you as an artist, right? As a professional artist, you get paid to speak around the world, and you have these, I put you in, I've told you this before, I put you in that category of the artist that gets this burning thing in the base of their skull, and you have to create it or else you will go insane, right?
It's
So
something like that. It's really annoying.
yeah, yeah. So what does that look like in this, in what may be coming in this virtual world? Like, will you have people like you have superpowers? Yeah, you can now you're not constrained by a an XY dimension Photoshop multi-layered document. Now you can create multiple layer episodic pieces of art, or add sound to it, make it 3D, and bring it into AR and stick it in, Times Square, whatever you want to do. Is it liberating, or is it
I
overwhelming?
mean, for every artist, that's going to be like a very personal experience. I mean, for me, it's equal parts inspiring and terrifying. I mean, for myself personally, like I wish I had learned 3D back when, it was. I wish I had taken the time to learn Maya while at the same time, or any of them while I was teaching
Ugh,
myself Photoshop.
yeah,
Because
I tried. I bounced off of Maya. It was,
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah. I mean,
was hard.
Maya's an abusive spouse for sure. It's not an easy learn. Um, but I mean, like I think the people who are truly going to be superpowered by this are the ones who have embraced that world already. I mean, I feel like myself, I'm too far behind already, like watching everything change so quickly. It's just like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And I just feel like I can't keep up. I feel like my brain is just not quite soft enough anymore, but am I still excited? Am I still like terrified? 100%.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I've always said like, I can't like I don't want to be expired as an artist, but at the same time I can't wait because it's going to be so cool. Because I mean, I look at like the artwork that the amazing artists that came before my generation of artists. Looking at the Frank Frazettas and the Louis Royos of the world and all these other painters. I mean, I wonder what they would have made if they had access to the things that we do now at a young age. Like what
Hmm.
their worlds would have created if they had grown up with a Wacom tablet in their hand as opposed to an oil paintbrush. What do those possibilities do for them? Um,
Yeah.
and that's really exciting. I mean, I look at even the work that I made. I mean, Photoshop came out when I was a teenager, and I mean, I started on Photoshop 5 for a little while, and then into Photoshop 7. And I look at the work and how things changed once I started working professionally. And compositing at the time wasn't really all that much of a thing. Like there were compositors out there, but it was nothing like what it is now. I mean, you couldn't even find a tutorial on compositing back then. What would it have been like if all of that stuff was around when I was a teenager, would it limit me or would it open doors? And that's what I love about watching the next generation of artists right now is, seeing some of them, paralyzed by fear and options and all these different ways to go. And then the other ones that just like, the technology around them is superpowers them. It's amazing.
Yeah, I wonder, it's always a double-edged sword, right?
Definitely.
Because you think of like, okay, I wonder what if Ansel Adams was alive today and he had access to a Nikon Z9 with 15 lenses and sponsorships and all this other stuff. If he wasn't presented with the constraints that were of his day, would he have created the quality of work that he created, or would it have short-circuited him with the analysis paralysis and too much choice and too much opportunity quandary?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
So,
it's always the question, of what creates brilliant work. What environment creates brilliant work, and it seems to be very different and very independent for everyone, and that's really really fun.
yeah, it's like these movies, right? You see these movies that are like they have no budget and they create these brilliant movies like Blair Witch Project or something like
Yeah.
that. They have zero budget and they create these runaway successes, and then they get budget, and then what happens?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how the limitations can kind of make like really interesting, scrappy storytelling. I mean, one of the things that I really love about streaming is that finally we're kind of off the Hollywood boob, as to be
Yeah.
slightly crass about it. But I mean, all of these people are going to these different streaming platforms saying, like, here's my idea, or here's my finished project, or whatever. And now we're getting all of these amazing storytelling opportunities from people who pre streaming their stories never would have been told, and
Yeah.
how they were filmed and all this kind of stuff. And like, streaming is not without its gross, incredible problems, of course. But I think it's this really interesting. I mean, it's the Pandora's box. Like the box has been opened for better or worse. Here we are.
Yeah. Do you see yourself in a future world? Like I know like Travis Scott and some other, big name musicians have done concerts and whatnot inside of virtual reality and with Quest headsets and all that stuff. Do you see yourself as, or your peer group participating in that sort of thing, or is it still too fringe, too edge? I'd rather go to a real concert. What's this headset stuff? Like how do you feel about that?
I mean, for me, there's not much is going to replace being in a mosh pit and like shoving someone for real.
Yeah.
Full disclosure. I mean,
Puke in the parking lot.
yeah, I mean, like I'm a little more uncommon in my field. I think I'm a raging extrovert. I don't have an introverted bone in my body, so if I can be in a crowd full of people, 100% I'll do that. But I also can't say that like I'll never do the virtual thing because so much is changing, and it actually could wind up like one day being totally awesome. I mean, I really work hard against the part of my brain that's a little bit of a technophobe. That's like, change is scary, which I think we all have. Um, but I mean,
Yeah.
like these virtual worlds, it's going to be a different way to have a community. It's going to be a different way to interact with people. It's going to be a different way to have and make memories. And, will I say no to that? Maybe one day, but also I might look at it and go like, hell yeah, let's try this out. And maybe I'll throw up in my VR helmet and get motion sick. So,
Exactly.
I mean, maybe it won't
I
be for
still can't
me.
get mine to fit. I'm telling you, I still can't get mine to fit right. I mean, I have the Quest 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if my head is just misshapen or what, but I just can't get comfortable in that thing. I can't spend more than like Nicole will get in there and play Beat Saber for an hour,
Nice.
and I cannot do it. I can't do it for more than like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, nah, I'm sweating. I can't do it.
Yeah, and
So I don't know.
it's just like everything. Like it's just it's gonna work for some, it's not gonna work for others, and like we're just gonna like fracture off again into like these are the people who go to concerts in real life, and these are the ones who do them virtually, and that's just the nature of our species. I think you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, it's so interesting. There's so much stuff, right?
Hmm.
There's so much stuff to sort of unpack, and there's so much uncertainty, especially now with all this craziness in the NFT market and what's Facebook going to do. Remember a couple of months ago they lost like would they lose like a quadrillion dollars worth of market cap, and
Yeah.
things are going up and down, right? I see these as dips, and then of course it'll go back up again. But I wonder, like, from an artist perspective, can you give me a glimpse into what, of course, not opening the kimono too wide, but, a glimpse into your vision for AR and VR in the future?
I mean, for me, AR personally is just something that's going to make the real world that we're in a little bit better. I mean, because we live in a very hack AR world now where we have like the entire universe of knowledge at our fingertips. But we carry around this like big clunky device that's always running out of battery power. But it does technically augment our reality a little bit because we're always communicating with people who are not in the same space as us.
Hmm.
Whereas like, true augmented reality, I think is really exciting and terrifying from an advertising perspective. I am not excited for advertising to figure that out, and they're going to be the ones to get it first, which is a disappointment. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, I think it'll make the world in a utopian, stars in my eye type perspective. I would love to see AR make the world more beautiful and more interesting, and a way to actually strangely ground people more in like the here and now. I mean, because right now, because we live in our like we live in these digital phones, we're staring at a screen, we're completely ignoring the world around us, right? I mean, look how many people get into car accidents because they're not paying attention to the freaking road because they have their phone in their hand. I think
Hmm.
AR hopefully will have, and like I said, this is my like utopia and like people are great hopefulness on it. But I mean, I really hope that it will bring people more into the reality and into the here and now, because they'll be like interacting with the here and now, as opposed to like, our phones, we live in our heads very, very firmly. So hopefully an AR world will help kind of separate that a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder. We've talked about. I don't know. You don't hear about this much anymore, but back in the day, I don't know, like 10 years ago or whatever, there was all this talk of the digital divide. You remember that?
Yeah, I
The
do. Yeah.
digital, the, yeah, yeah. It's like the digital divide. People that can't afford computers are barred from getting on the internet, and they can't do this. They can't. Of course, completely valid. And I think about. I haven't forgotten that.
hmm
Then I fast forward to today, and I wonder, are we just exacerbating that now with all this other technology that is going to open doors for people that can afford high-speed internet and $2,000 phones and $1,000 headsets, and so now there are more keys and more doors to unlock to get through that divide.
hmm
Or the other side of that, because there's the optimist of me. I always have a devil and an angel on each shoulder, right? The other side of it is, hey, look, Elon Musk is putting up this whole, whatever your thoughts about Elon and whatever he's working on and his aspirations, but he's put, his company's putting up this constellation of satellites that are bringing ubiquitous, reasonably high speed internet to every point on the globe. And now people that are living in countries that or areas of the world that wouldn't ordinarily have internet access at least have the ability to get internet access. Now, does that does that lessen the divide? Because now, quote, all you need is a cheap computer or a headset to get in. I wonder. I mean, do you think about that stuff like as an artist creating? Do you feel like you're creating for a limited audience if it's strictly for people that can consume it digitally, or how do you reconcile that?
I mean, yes. The short answer is, I mean, with the project that I'm working on right now, that's definitely part of the concern, is just like, how do we make this more available to as many people as possible? Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, also, and I hate this perspective on it, but if there is a way for companies to make money, they're going to try and figure out how to get it in the hands of as many people as possible. So I think that the more, because I mean, like even with my phone, right? Like I'm running a really old iPhone 7.
You like doing that stuff though. You're like the priest that's flogging himself. You just like the old tech.
Well, I mean, also though, like I also feel like it's kind of responsible, from
Yeah.
like, to like use and burn technology. I think it's kind of shitty. But on the flip side, like if they're like, every app developer I know on the planet who's working on something, they want to make sure that their device, their program works on as many devices as possible. Is this going to work on the iPhone 4? Because we know people are using iPhone 4s. Um, you know, and so like there's always the risk of that divide, but
Yeah.
I think it's closing more than opening because, you know, there's money to be made in every single person having a smartphone in their hands, right? Because there's so many ways to monetize that. And so for better or worse, um,
Hmm.
I mean, and again, I have very incomplete thoughts on this, but I do think that the divide is real, but I also think that it will become less simply just because every single kid, not every, obviously, I'm generalizing again, but like most kids around the world in a lot of places around the earth have grown up with some form of digital technology in their life, right? They've grown up, with digital banks and like PayPal and all this stuff, whether you have access to a lot of money or technology or not. Whereas, when I was a kid, that stuff was like sci-fi, literally. So I
Yeah.
think that changes the accessibility of it when almost like, vast majority of the population around the world is growing up with this stuff now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such a catch-22 because I'm a parent, right?
Hmm.
So that is, and I'm highly resistant to getting my daughter a cell phone. She has an iPad and she does her little stuff on there, Roblox mostly.
Yes,
Um, but I'm highly resistant to getting her a cell phone for obvious reasons. Kids develop legit addiction to cell phones.
yes,
And all the things that they bring in, and I don't want that happening at an 8-year-old age,
of
right?
course.
So but then the other side of it is we're in the United States, right? And there's school shootings and all this dangerous crap happening. And I'm like, you can't even get into the school to see your kid these days. You got to like go through the office and sign, all this stuff. You can't just pop in a classroom anymore.
Dude, America's
So I'm
wild.
like, it's crazy here, man. It's a jungle. So I'm like, okay, and now I feel like I have to get her a cell
Just get
phone
her
to
a flip
maintain
phone. Get her a
communication.
flip phone. She's got to dial, like, hit the
Yeah.
number 3 times to make the letter she wants.
Okay. Are you familiar with being a teenager or a young kid? Are you going to show up with a flip phone?
Whatever, man. Everyone's got strict parents. Someone's got strict parents. I mean, and also though, like,
You're
but
like,
you're like, so our generation. Well, I mean, I'm one generation past you, but like,
yeah,
my generation had, we had the benefit of having our really young lives without technology, and then teenagers, all of a sudden, technology became a thing. And like, smartphones became a thing in our 20s. So we have this like aversion to putting devices in kids' hands, right? And I think a lot of
yeah,
parents are going through that exact experience, right? So again, like I think there's a market for those parents who are just like, okay, my kid needs to be able to get a hold of me, flip phone only. Like, yeah, you're doing leet text, have fun.
yeah. Disney tried that. Like, what was it? Like 10 years ago or something? They tried this thing. They had a Disney phone.
Hmm.
And you could give it to your kid, and of course, only certain people could call, and it only worked certain times a day. And
Right.
the parents had an app where they could monitor literally everything, kind of like the government in our phones these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Facebook.
So it's basically that, but for kids and consumerized. Um, and it failed.
Hmm.
I think it failed. I don't know
Because
why it
nobody
failed,
trusts
but
Disney with that stuff.
yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't trust
that's true.
Disney. I would not give Disney like my kids. No, no, not happening. But I mean,
Yeah.
if
What?
you give a
You
kid,
don't believe in their fairy tales?
no, oh my God, no. But I mean, like if you give a kid like a cell phone and all it can do is text and dial, it doesn't have internet access, it doesn't have app access. Like for an 8-year-old, where it's like, hey, are you okay? Yes or no? Like you can get that information.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's so much. And how do you stay on top of all this stuff? I mean, It's like literally, I mean, we used to say this years, decades ago, like, oh man, this stuff's moving so fast. It's like sipping from a fire hose, with gaming and internet and these sites and drones and, photography apps and cameras and lighting and, just on and on. It's a never-ending list of different tangents that are moving at an exponential
Right.
pace. And then we are humans that are trying to keep up with it. How do you keep up with it? Do you just like say, screw it all, I'm just going to pay attention to these three things?
Yeah.
Or do you try to keep track of
Oh my
everything?
God, no, that's impossible. I always tell people like pick a lane, and stick to it until something comes along and like kicks you in the face into another lane. Like you
Yeah.
only have so many hours in a day, right? We all have the same 24 hours, and how we spend them matters, right? And so I really, really, really work hard at not getting paralyzed by options. And this means that like yeah, sometimes I miss like a lot of opportunities, but also there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
unfortunately, like I'm not raising children or anything like that, so I have a lot more hours available to me than others. But I mean, there is, just like the Ansel Adams conversation, there is a simplicity and a superpower in limiting the amount of like limiting your options. I mean, like I always tell people like, oh, if you're learning lighting, buy one light and just use the crap out of that one light until you have absolutely done every single thing you can with one light, then get a reflector. And then like absolutely maximize that and then get yourself two lights, right? And then like, that should take you 3 years to get really good with two lights and a reflector.
Yeah, but that sounds great, but the reality is people are being bombarded with YouTube videos from influencers
Only if
about,
you look.
oh, you need 13 speed
No.
lights to do this, and you got to have this camera, you got to have this
That's why
lens
you just
and
don't
this
listen.
application.
Don't listen. I mean, to be fair, like I don't go on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I never update it. I try to, but to be fair, I just can't. I only have so many hours in a day. But like I don't listen to any of that crap. I don't watch it. I don't nothing. I mean, if I want to know something, I will ask someone or try to figure it out. I mean, I'm not like
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not doing that to myself because that's just torture, right? Like you're just like you're bombarding yourself with too many options, and then all of a sudden you're paralyzed, you're freaking out, and all of a sudden 5 years later, going, "Why do I have an anxiety problem?" Like, no, why,
Yeah.
why is that such a thing that people are so addicted to doing to themselves? I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know because I fall victim to that too from a number of different areas. Like for example, a couple of months ago, I was really, and I still am, really interested in this whole world of 360 photography and video. And I got an Insta 360 One X
Hmm.
and or X2 and all the things, and I'm playing with it and understanding it and all that. Then of course another shiny object shows up and I'm over there now,
Right.
or some life thing happens, I got to take care of that. And then just today I'm like reorganizing my office and I found that camera. I'm like, holy crap, I haven't done anything with this thing that I spent $400 on.
Right.
It's just sitting there and all this, and those things, that camera is just packed full of all this crazy magic, borderline Arthur C. Clarke magic,
Hmm.
right, is in there that I haven't even touched because I haven't had time. Now I feel bad about having bought the thing and let it
I
languish.
gotta say, there's something to be said that I think everyone can benefit from a little poverty. Because when money
Yeah,
limits you and you're just like, oh God, I only have like X amount of dollars to spend, where am I going to spend it? Right. And then you start thinking about the reality of your time actually being money. So,
yeah.
like, if you approach life as if you're broke ass, whether you are or not,
Renee, I think you're onto something. I think you're onto a brand new startup where people come to you, they just give you all of their money, right?
no, my God, no.
And you give them one light and one camera, and you say, have at it for 3 years. And if you're good at the end of that, I'll give you your money back.
There's a whole network for that. I believe it's called financial doming. Um, that exists already.
See, I'm just so unhip. I don't know. I don't know. So we touched on the VR. We touched on VR. I want to dive into the AR stuff a
Hmm.
little bit more. So Apple, like I said, is rumored. I have no information about Apple. I worked at Apple, but I have no inside information there. And but the scuttlebutt is they're working on these VR glasses, and they've earmarked a percentage of their trillion-dollar market cap or multi-trillion-dollar market cap to make this thing a reality. Tim Cook has been quoted as saying, I think he thinks AR is going to be as revolutionary and life-changing as the iPhone was,
Hmm.
right, to the world. So with those statements in your mind and overlaying your being an artist, a forward-thinking artist, what can we expect? Because I don't care to see like a flower floating in the middle of, the street or something like that. I want to see something that's interesting and thought-provoking. What kind of things do you think we'll see when this technology, this AR glasses technology, is as mainstream as iPhones?
That is a massively complicated question.
I
What do
know,
you
because I
think?
know you have to dance around answering it
What
too.
do you think the future is going to be? I don't know. Drop a bunch of acid and like watch Blade Runner.
Mushrooms and Full Metal Jacket.
Oh
That's it.
man, that's a rough go. I wish that on nobody. um, but I mean,
Yeah, it's tough.
where would this augmented reality world go? I mean, to be fair, like I think there's a bunch of movies that have done a really good job of what those potentials are.
Yeah.
What was that one with the re-sleeving?
No, there was another Black Mirror
No,
episode where
I'm
I
not
thought
talking about Black
it
Mirror. I
was.
don't watch that shit.
You gotta watch
No,
it. I'm
no,
telling you.
no. I don't need the anxiety that all that can rot in a fire. No, no offense to anybody who worked on it or anyone who enjoys it. I only have so many hours a day. No. um. Oh my god, what was it called though? It was shit. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Anybody here want to like pipe in what the hell this was called? With the re-sleeving, and they did a season 2 and it wasn't as good. And there was like the AI hotel clerk. Come on, guys.
What? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It was a comedy, right?
No. Okay, I'm just gonna Google it. On the topic of having the information at our fingertips, somebody's listening to this going like, "Oh my god, it's X." Huh? Altered ego. Altered ego? No, altered carbon. Ah, altered carbon. That's what it was.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Okay. Anthony Mackie, right? Was
Yeah,
in
he was
it?
in season 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like Altered Carbon, I think has like some really interesting ideas on like what an augmented reality future could be like, and how he, first comes out with a new sleeve and he's just like overloaded with spam and like all these ads that are in like this augmented reality space and he's just losing his mind. And this woman comes up to him and is just like, here's an ad blocker, kind of like how like the early internet was, and you'd be like browsing online looking for music and like risking giving yourself like a permanent digital VD. um
Yeah.
that's probably also
Yeah.
very fair of like what could happen, like if you go on the internet these days without all these different blockers in place, it's probably that could be a very real reality because there's a lot of people out there, including scammers, trying to figure out ways to separate you from your money.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it could be like also really interesting and really interactive and like, I mean, I love the idea of, and this is impossible right now. This is one of the things that I was hoping for to do in like 4 years. But with this, art book that I'm working on, of being able to have some of these pieces like just like pop off the page and like run through the room that you're in, right? Like, how fun would that be? And like, does that mean that as an artist for myself, I either have to hire people who are skilled in animation or I have to learn how to do animation myself in order to make this stuff a reality? Yes. Does it make the idea of, what I want to make as an art piece way more complicated? Yeah. But does that also open up the world of possibilities? 100%. And so for the people who have those skills already, I mean, I am super stoked to hear and to see and to like, interact with the stuff that they're making. I think this is going to be super dope.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It feels like there's all these pieces in place. Like we talk about, the what is it, the Skylink, whatever network
Hmm.
that's gonna bring ubiquitous internet access to the world. And then we've got games like Roblox and whatever, Call of Duty, etc. These giant, massive games where people are interacting and making relationships, good and bad,
Hmm.
all over the world right now. And then we've got this AR stuff that's happening. And then, of course, the NFT and crypto and blockchain layer underneath all of this stuff. I feel like we're like in covered wagon state right now.
Oh,
Where
100%. Yeah. I mean, like my biggest interest in the NFT world isn't necessarily minting NFT artwork. I am super excited to see what that's going to do for like transferring government documents or like, if you go to the doctor and you need like a prescription and you get this like, minted NFT and hopefully they're not using the same amount of gas that we're doing now, but you get this like
yeah.
minted NFT of like, here's your prescription and it only goes to like this doctor and like, like that technology is so cool and super, super exciting. I'm very curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean all kinds of stuff, right? I
Hmm.
mean everything from like you're saying medical documents to your title to your car to your transcripts from
Totally.
school.
Hmm.
Basically nobody can lie,
Yeah.
right? Whether it be tied to artwork or whatnot, it's basically now you don't have to trust anyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but
Imagine that.
wherever there's a system built, the system can be broken. So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah, there's so much fun to be had. I'm curious, like someone like you, Renee, that you're crazy busy all the time creating stuff and running around giving talks and shooting and all these things. How do you get inspired? How do you get inspired to create the stuff that you create? And how do you the second part of the question is how do you learn? Like, do you go to I know you have courses up on creativelive.com.
mhm.
Like, do you go to Creative Live to consume stuff or LinkedIn Learning or books? Like, how do you learn new things and how do you stay inspired to create those things?
So I get inspired to create new things by learning new things.
Mm, mm,
That's the biggest one. If I'm feeling really like down and out or whatever, I mean, again, my extroverted ass, it gets really inspired by people, and by meeting with them and talking to them and, having conversations. But also how I like to learn is I hate watching, it's part of the reason why I don't YouTube. I hate watching YouTube. I don't watch anything on Creative Live. I don't watch videos of like somebody talking at me of how to follow it because I just don't follow it very well. I mean, my favorite way to learn is to do one-on-ones with people, like, sit down and talk to me.
mhm, mhm.
That's the biggest thing because yeah, for me, I mean, people are everything, and that's a big part of the art book that I'm working on is about the amazing people that this career has given me the opportunity to meet and work with over the years. There's a lot of people out there who are very nihilistic about society, and rightfully so, for the record.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are millions and millions and millions of just like truly amazing people around the world, and I've been very lucky to meet a number of them. Obviously, not millions, but I collect interesting people like little trinkets that I just like put them on a shelf in my brain where I'm just like, this person did this really cool thing, and this person did this really cool thing, and then I just sit there and I like look at them in my brain and before I go to sleep, and I'm just like, oh yeah, all these people, they're so neat. And there's something
Yeah.
that's like I just really adore about so many of them. And yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, I'm sorry to all the introverts. It's people.
I was telling someone yesterday, I am an introverted extrovert.
Yeah,
If that's not equivocation, I don't know what it is, but
it
I
is.
I
Yeah.
am yeah, but it's true because I am the person that I can turn on my extroverted layer when necessary, but my normal comfortable state of being is introvert.
Yeah.
So
So for me, it's the complete opposite. Like I figured out actually today that the best way for me to get stuff done is I can't invite an extrovert over because they talk too much. But if I invite an introvert over and they like either game or like watch a movie that I've seen before or whatever, and they just like quietly sit there in their little introverted bubble, being all like quiet and stuff, and then my extroverted ass is like, oh yeah, there's a person in the house, like woo, this is great. But I'm also getting work done. So you have
yeah,
to like you have
yeah.
to adopt as an extrovert. You have to do the responsible thing and adopt an introvert.
Oh my God, yeah. I gotta say, the universe has jokes because I'm in a relationship with an extrovert and I'm an introvert at
Hey,
home.
that's
So,
how it works. That's how it works. I mean, my
oh,
partner is one of the most introverted people I've ever met in my damn life. And when we go out, he's like, "Okay, so how long are we going out for?" I'm like, "4 hours." And in my brain, I'm like, 12.
and he's like, okay, I can put the landing gear down at 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. 3 hours. 3 hours in, he's already starting to put the landing gear down, and he's just like, okay, it's like time to get ready to go. And I'm like, but we'll say bye. And then I'll say bye for like 6 more hours.
Oh my
If I'm
God.
left
Yeah.
off leash, right? And like I'm cool with that. So yeah, there's some compromise.
Oh, you're her. You were her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a monster. So
Well, you know what? I've been watching that whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial,
nope.
so I feel like I'm a lawyer right now. And you opened the door to have a line of questioning about the art project that you're working on. So you mentioned it. You mentioned it, so I feel like it's admissible
Yeah,
now.
no,
So,
that's okay. Yeah, I'm working on an art book. I've been working on it for the last like 6 years now, and it's an augmented reality art book. Hopefully, that's the plan. That's the way it's working out so far.
hmm.
And yeah, I'm hoping to have the Kickstarter ready to launch by August, September, somewhere in there. So yeah, it is a big old monster, and
Well,
it scares me.
can you give us a glimpse into what it is, or is it still super squirrel secret?
A bunch of it's still super secret squirrel status, but there is some animation aspects to it and audio as well. So yeah,
Wow, multimedia.
yeah. I mean, yeah. There's so much I could talk about it, but I have to. There's a couple stages yet that I'm waiting for milestones to hit as far as the project's concerned before I start being like, holy crap, this is the blah. But once I can, I'm going to be really irritating. So anybody who follows my social media, if you're not into that, I'm sorry. Probably mute me for like 2 months.
All right, so I'm gonna take a separate line of questioning then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sounds
So
good. I'm just going to open my door because someone's at my front door.
yeah, I heard that. That was my doorbell.
No, that's mine. So just hold on 1 second. Oh,
Yeah.
it's my sister and her dog that I'm going to carry. All right, I have the fattest min pin ever in my arms right now. Hi, Twitter. You get to hear me carry a fat dog.
That's all. No, I was gonna
Anyways,
ask
what
you
was
as
your question?
we wrap this up. We only have like 4 minutes left. I'm curious about, you mentioned that the things that inspire you is learning new things, and you sort of learn new things to get inspired, vice versa. What new tools and new techniques did you need to learn in order to execute this art project?
Oh my God. I mean, I had to learn all about augmented reality. I mean, I originally was working on this with another person, but unfortunately, this person passed away last year suddenly. So all of the
Mhm.
parts that they were working on, I'm suddenly going like, oh my God, I have to learn a lot of stuff really quickly, and I have to like hire people who know more than I do. I have to learn how to design a book. uh, I mean, it's
Mhm.
just like this
Mhm.
big, big monster of a project that, I was hoping to have 4 more years to work on it with, but with my friend passing away, it really didn't feel right to, take another 4 years to do it, because this person's not around anymore and that person was really important to me. And so, yeah, feel like now it's just like, well, get it out in whatever it is and whatever it exists at the moment. And it will be the purest form that I can do with what I
Yeah.
have. So, yeah.
And the other side of it is it's enough. I mean, we're digital, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, okay, you're carving Mount Rushmore and it's going to be permanent when you're done with it,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
You can change it and evolve
it
it.
is going to be a print book with an augmented
Okay.
reality segment to it. So the AR part can totally evolve, and I can be like, haha, here's round two, because round one was pretty rough. Um, so the AR stuff I can modify, but the print work, obviously, the book itself will be what it's going to be. So,
I don't know. In my head, I have no insight into what it's going to be, but in my head, I have this sort of like high quality pop-up book
oh my God, I
that
wish.
is that is, as you turn the page and then something happens on the pages in front of you, like in the Millennium Falcon when they're in that scene and they're playing that chess
Oh my
game.
God, that's the stuff that I wish we could have done with the book, and that was why we were waiting for AR to mature. Because I mean, he was a futurist with Intel for years, and 6 years ago we knew augmented reality was coming, and we were just like, oh yeah, like let's start working on this, let's start doing this, and like in 10 years we'll put this book out, and
Yeah.
obviously the universe doesn't really always work the way you want it to. And so, I'm basically like putting it together with these puzzle pieces that are not fully formed yet. But with any luck in the future, if I can turn this thing into a gallery show, and as augmented reality expands, hopefully I can make a really interesting, interactive AR gallery experience for people.
It's going to be
I
great. Can't
hope
wait.
so. I just hope the Kickstarter funds. Oh my God, it keeps me up at night. I've never done a
Well,
Kickstarter
so
before, so I'm just like pinned with anxiety.
yeah, well, I know a couple people that have done some pretty successful Kickstarters, so I can put you in touch with them if you want.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I will take
One of
anybody
them,
on Twitter.
one of
I will
them,
take all of your suggestions, please.
one of them runs a company that creates these pretty kick-ass camera bags in San Francisco.
Oh
So
yeah,
you
I
may have
may or
heard
may
of it.
not have heard of that camera bag company. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. I
So,
can't compete with those guys. Those guys have that's different.
well, the mechanics are the same, you know. So Kickstarter's a Kickstarter.
Fair enough, fair enough. That goes to show my ignorance on this topic.
You know, yeah. Let's pay no attention to the decimal point position.
Oh man, the decimal point is terrifying.
Well, Renee, thank you for jumping on and chatting. It's always a pleasure, as you know. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. You and I could talk for hours and hours about all kinds of stuff, and we didn't even get into movies or gaming or any of that
Well, I
stuff.
mean, it's
So
also it's does anybody want to listen to it though?
I know, I know. Well, just so you know, per our conversation the other night, I'm in the first. I've started God of War,
Yes,
so
God of War is
I'm in
so
the
good.
first. Yeah, I chopped down a tree. I just want to say.
Perfect. God of War is an excellent game. It is so good. I have the art book sitting on top of my shelf right now by my couch. I love it so much. It's such a great
It's
game.
crazy.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. And then
So
once you've done that, then you get
if
into Horizon Zero Dawn, and then you get into Ghost of Tsushima.
I have both of
Yeah.
those. I don't have the new Horizon
Oh,
Zero Dawn. I have the
start with
old
the
one.
old one first. Yeah, it's a beautiful game. It deserved all the awards that it won. It's awesome.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. See, I want to go in that world. I want to go. I've run that game. I want to go in that world and hang out and do things in virtual reality in that world, like
Exactly.
fight
That's the
robot
beauty of
animals
games.
and
That's
stuff.
the beauty of games, and that's why
Mhm.
it's so hard to, build like a Universal Studios but Horizon Zero Dawn, because like you can pop on a headset and just like start running through it. Like that's pretty good for most people. That's going to be pretty awesome. And you can go
Mhm.
further. Like you can build an infinitely huge space in a virtual world, as opposed to like Universal Studios where it's like here's your mile and a half, have fun. It's like
Right.
it's like a tease of what the virtual world can give you.
But yeah, and what if you blend the worlds? Like you have the virtual world where you put on the VR goggles and you're fully immersed and you go in there to do your thing or whatever. And then you go up, you put on your regular AR glasses and go out into the real world and kind of continue it,
Well,
you know,
okay,
where,
so
oh, look at that giant dinosaur over there, you know, next to Starbucks.
there is this super awesome video on YouTube, one of the few things that I have watched. But there is this really, really, really awesome video on YouTube where I think Castrol did it, where they made this like VR headset and built like a video game world in this headset, and then this professional driver drives a real Mustang on like a big open tarmac and just like hauls ass, like so for real is driving this car everywhere, but everything that he sees is a virtual space.
Mm,
That's cool. That's so awesome.
that is crazy.
That
Yeah,
was years ago. So like you think about that technology and where it is now and what they can do with that, that is very, 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 very cool.
I want that. It's a race against time, man. I gotta, that stuff needs to arrive while I'm not senile,
Yeah,
right?
right? Well, like how fun would that be to just like, hey, we're doing a track day and here's your rental Lamborghini like you do in Vegas, right? So you get your like rental Lamborghini car and you do this racetrack, but you also get this like, totally virtual headset. So you're driving a car in real life, all the G's that you're feeling, the road bumps, everything, but you're driving Mario Kart World, right? Where it's like this, rainbow road. But you're like
Yeah,
whipping around for real in a car. Like, how fun would that be? Also,
that would be
I
cool.
mean, I
That would
think
be
that'd
cool.
be super exciting.
Yeah, until till hackers get a hold of it and make you run over
Well, I
people.
mean, that's why you make sure it's not hooked up to anything that's connected to the internet. You make it a black
That's
box.
right. That's right. Yeah. Yep. Isolated.
Hmm.
Oh, Renee, if people want to follow you and support this Kickstarter that's going to launch at some point, where's a good place for them to point their browsers to?
Yeah, so if you want to get a hold of me, basically any social media, at Renee Robyn Photography or at Renee Robyn Photo. Some version of that you'll find me on like TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. If you want to go to my website, it's reneerobyn.com. And if you want your email added to the mailing list, just send me a message on any of those platforms and I'll add you on. I'm actually working on getting the like sign up here for the Kickstarter button on my website this week. I'm just really slow.
Yeah. You're like 5, 6, 7 years slow. I told you to do that like 10
Oh
years
yeah,
ago.
I know. I didn't listen to anybody. I'm really bad at being told what to do. Somebody tells you like you
Uh-huh.
need to do this, and I'm like, shut up! You can't tell me what to do. I'm perpetually a stupid teenager.
Yeah, you're basically a cat.
Oh, it's the worst. That's one of the things about my personality that like has a lot of benefits, but also it completely screws me over sometimes.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
all right, we'll leave it right there. Thanks everybody for joining in. And Sketchlight, I got your message at the beginning. I'll make sure the Light people actually post these spaces on the Light blog and the Light website. So we'll make sure that's taken care of. And yeah, thanks everybody for popping in. If you're listening to this on the replay, we are doing these spaces twice a week, once on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. US Pacific, and then another one on Thursdays at 10 a.m. US Pacific. So just follow our Twitter and you'll see it pop up and hang out with us and join in the conversation. Renee, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having me on, and thanks to everyone for listening and checking out and the long-winded, rambly answers. I appreciate it.
No, it was not at all. It was great, as always. All right.
Okay.
You have a good rest of your day. Tell your sister I said hello.
Oh yeah. Brandy, Frederick says hello. There you go. Did you hear that? All right.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Take care, everybody. See you,
Have a
Renee.
good night. Bye.